All right, so we'd like to welcome you guys back to the Trampled Underfoot Podcast show, and that stars and is hosted by Mark Lindsay and Eloy Escagedo, myself. You always mention the person. A lot of people, typically in random situations, not necessarily in this type of thing, when we're presenting in a specific task, which is the show,
Mhm.
people will say, "Yeah, because I went over there to the ice cream shop." As well as Timmy, Linda, and Jason, and so on, and they always put themselves first. And I mean, you could do what you want, but like generally speaking, unless there's a specific reason for doing so, you always present the people all around you typically first. And that's just an example that I just came up with, but it's, I guess it's a rule within decency or respect communally, or I don't even know. I just know that it's the correct thing to do.
Well, you also had you were taught that in writing. I remember learning that in like fourth grade or something like that. It's when you're describing more than one person, the other person first, then yourself.
Right.
So it'd be Eloy and I, not me and Eloy.
Well, imagine it was wonderful. I was doing this, that, and then Mark was there.
Yeah.
And it just, and if you keep, and like, let's say you have to write like a whole like thing, and you keep doing that, you sound pompous as hell.
Yeah.
And because it's writing, you can't necessarily like in normal, because we usually focus from our vantage point out into life. So obviously we come first. Why can't it be so in writing as well? It's so, but it's not.
It's decency. I mean,
I think it's decency.
It is, and folks can tell when. It also depends on context, but folks can tell when I have done the edit and written the description for one of our episodes, and when you have, because you put me first and I put you first. So if you see Eloy's name first, I did the description. If you see, unless it's something like this week, I had to put myself first because I started off the conversation, start talking about something, and so it had, because it was first, it had to be me first. But generally, you are first.
And it's no. Generally, you
when
are
I do
first.
When
I know. I was
now
playing.
Now we sound like the two Gophers on the Warner Brothers. No, after you. No, after you. No, after you.
So obviously, we've titled this January 26th, 2021 episode, at least for the moment, because we don't know what the heck's going to happen
right
from here to eternity. But I named it because something popped into my head, and you know exactly what it is, I would assume. Because we have the hive mind in many things. This is what glues us together in society, whatever that means.
Well, not only that, we both listen to the same style of music for the most part. So, yeah.
Well, for you guys listening in the year 2259, after the invasion of the spider monkeys.
That was very specific.
AC/DC wrote a number of songs, and they were a rock band, heavy metal band, you could say, or heavy rock, depending. There's the jury's still out on that one, folks. But for you guys over there in the future, teleporting from here to Saturn and Uranus, that was a band that played the rocks and roll, and they had this song, and it was called Done Dirt Cheap, or Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Well, I just left off the Dirty Deeds and did the Done Dirt Cheap part, because to be honest, how much cheaper can you get bang for your buck than our podcast?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Now, money is something that was used in the 21st century. It was an antiquated thing.
A method of trade.
It was a method of trade,
Exactly.
Just so that you guys know that over there.
I know you're joking right now, but we're not really that far away from that. I mean, because, what was the last time you went to the bank and got physical cash out?
It's a funny thing. I'm always doing the opposite.
Yeah.
It's always in order to pay off the things that you have to, things are weird because to that point that you said, and it's funny how all things line up, or at least in my mind. In my mind, things are organized, but or I think they are, but it must be freaking craziness. If somebody would hop on your train for a little while and they'd see the landscape of how you see things, I'm sure they'd be like, this guy is burnt.
Yep, it's dark and scary in there. You don't want to be in my head.
Today, Mark, I did a tiny bit of grocery re-up.
Uh-oh. Yeah,
but very tiny, meaning I went and came back because I didn't want to do the whole, item by item. So I said, survival stuff quick, I'm out of here. Well, I got to the register and I pulled out $100 bill and I slapped that puppy right on the conveyor belt and it sat and it went poop and the lady grabbed it and she started to expertly examine it and by the way, there's no way but she's looking at it and stuff and she takes out the pen and she inks it because I think it's iodine or mercurochrome. I don't know what the hell I think it's iodine, and what happens is the paper will change color to black. But the natural color of the iodine is a brownish color.
Yeah,
well, she did that. Like a tannish, sort of like rusty type. Well, so she did that, and it was the same color that it originally was found in the pen. And she lifted it up, and she's still looking at it. And she showed her assistant, and she said, or the bag lady, and she says, "Is this one okay?" And I said, and I just had to just throw it in there. I said, "Yeah, if it turns black, it's bad. And if it's that color, it's the same color that the pen has. So you're pretty much." I stopped at that, but because it's like, oh my gosh, lady, are you now an expert? There are certain things that you should have been taught before you do the examination, But so the other lady, oh, you got them, the typical joke. Oh, you printed them well then, and I'm like, oh, yes,
yeah. And made sure the ink was dry and everything.
Yeah. So money is the point is that money is still used, but more people are using the credit card, and it makes it easier for everybody. But there's a downside to it as well.
Oh yeah, there's upsides and downsides to everything, and it depends on where you're at. Down in Nevada, where there's casinos everywhere, and there's lots of $100 bills floating around in Nevada, they don't even think about them twice. They might hold it up to make sure they can see the watermark in it, or they'll hit it with the pen and then it goes in. But that's just to make sure that it's real. It's not necessarily, around here, you get that criminal examination where you almost expect them to want a DNA test to take your $100 bill.
Yeah.
They're looking at everything and holding it up to the light, and they hit it with the pen, and then they hold it up to the light and hit it with the pen again, like it changed or something like that. But down there, $100 bills are all over the place, and every gas station, any AM, PM, any 7-Eleven, they can take a $100 bill. They don't care. But around here, it's like, ooh, I don't know if I can take that. It's like, dude, the guy in front of me just spent $94. I know you got the change. Come on.
Yeah.
That's one of the downsides to you actually using, green. And not only that is, if you're going to pay two people, or you have an odd amount to pay somebody, say you owe a friend $25. Well, he wants cash. He don't want a check. Okay, fine. Nobody writes checks anymore anyway. So now you go to the ATM machine and you can get out a 20 or you can get out two 20s, but you can't get a 5. So now you got to go somewhere and buy something cheap to break a 20 because they're not going to open up the drawer for you to make change.
Yeah.
So it's just a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But, such is the world we live in.
I was thinking the other day, and I think it's a brilliant idea. What if they were to do a sort of like international, maybe a chip that they planted on your forehead or in your hand, and it had numericals in it that had all your information, and all they had to do is come around with this big pistola and just go zap and zap your information, and that way, well, hell, you can quicken the number of the beast. Yeah, but that so
we're not too far away from that either.
I said all of that jokingly, tongue in cheek, because I don't like not necessarily that, but it's eerily similar the direction we're headed.
And the funny thing about this is the people who are listening to us on audio in 2255 are going, cowards. They did that. They did that for 150 years. So
yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe. See, here's the thing: we're assuming, and the other day I was thinking another thing, which I'll just, I guess I'll lay out later or whatever if it comes up. But we're assuming that in the future, and I'm assuming as well, a certain advancement is going to occur.
Right.
And it is true that for all our history that we're aware of, advancement has occurred. But that does not mean there's a high probability that it will continue. But going that far out into the future, things become more opaque as to events that lead one after the other. So we don't know. They could be just as well sitting in caves going ooga aga, scratching their butts and drinking water from and minerals from the dripping stalactites that's coming from the oceans above, filtered through the salt, because our skies have been riddled with radioactive frickin' carbonite. Yeah, we don't know what the future is going to be.
And I don't remember which episode it was, but we were talking about that article of people in 1900 projecting out what they thought the future was going to be like 100 years from them. You can only project on the trajectory you're on. And about half of what they said kind of came true. And the other half was way off in left field, because that's the trajectory they were on. They could not even begin to fathom everybody having a computer or cell phone or tablet or any kind of social media. They couldn't fathom any of that because it wasn't a part of their lives. It hadn't really been invented yet.
There was not even an inkling of that possibility.
So for us, we can only predict on the trajectory that we're on, and everything that we're discussing in the future so far is basically has to do with electronics or things that are online or things that rely on electricity. Because you're absolutely right. Electricity may just be done in 150 years, and there is no electricity.
We could all be carrying a little nuclear regenerating device in our frickin' spine stem, and it charges things all around. We don't frickin' know. I mean, it sounds
we have no
ridiculous.
idea. We have zero idea. I mean, they may figure out a way to make fuel out of seawater, which regenerates. I don't know. We just don't know where the next big thing is going to come from. I mean, I was real excited about the hydrogen fuel cell for a long time. I really thought that was the way to go, until I stopped and kind of did a little bit of thinking for myself and went, no, you know what? They're talking about, and this is when they were still calling it global warming. They weren't calling it climate change then. The number one, the biggest greenhouse gas, quote unquote, greenhouse gas in our atmosphere is water vapor. And that's exactly what a hydrogen fuel cell creates, is more water vapor. So it's like, we don't need more of that.
So I'm of the mind, in my limited capacity, I'm of the mind, just on that topic, of I really don't know anything other than my limited scope, but I like a certain type of, I've come to a certain type of being of a certain type of point of view, attitude, point of view / whatever you want to call it, where So for instance, remember that comedian that passed away that was George Carlin.
Uh-huh.
George Carlin had one skit. He had many, but he had one skit where he talked about the end of the world and humans trying to control this and that, and essentially paraphrasing in a nutshell, he said, "You folks aren't going to control anything." He said, "The Earth is going to be fine." When referencing plastic, he said, "Where does plastic come from? From the Earth." And then people will argue that, yeah, but now it creates this. And he says, well, folks, by the time you guys are all gone, shaken off like a bad cold, off of the face of the Earth, for the Earth, it'll be the Earth plus plastic, it's, and so, the reason, so he is a little bit brutal, but the reason I like that concept is only the point of us being so important that we can change the world around, and we can, but
sure,
but the overcompensation and importance added personality type, the gall, the arrogance that humans have, oh, we can do this and that, diminishing that a little bit and understanding that you can't control, the hurricanes of this or that, a little bit of humility. I like that angle to it is what I'm getting at.
And I'm in 100% agreement with you on that there, because the one thing that a lot of people, and I don't care which side of the aisle you're on this, but a lot of people seem to forget is that nature always wins. Nature always wins. You cannot keep a river flowing where it's flowing right now if it decides that it's going to break free and go somewhere else. You can't prevent a volcano from erupting. You can't prevent an earthquake from happening. You can't prevent a tornado or a hurricane. All you can do is ride it out. Nature always wins. And we're here for a little while. And, learn to live within those rules, because nature's rules take precedent over everything.
My natural state, to be perfectly honest, and I have to fight it, is always to be and want to be correct and aware.
I think everybody does.
And that's where I'm going. I think that it's a trait, it's a human, because we are locked in on this ride, and our vehicle is our body, and we have this mind, and it's from our, so as much as I could put myself in your shoes empathy wise, and which is an important trait for human beings to have, because if we didn't have that, we'd be animals. Mm-hmm. As much as one could never exactly be able to, it's just not a possibility, detail by detail, that level of in somebody else's shoes. So I've floored it a little bit, stepped on the gas a little bit, always reminding myself the whatever 100% sure of, and you can't be so relative either. You have to stake your claim and put your flag on certain hills and mountains, sure. Because you have to navigate through life, and you have to have some principles. You can't be, but relativity, in a way is one person's disaster is another person's great old day, and you could just go down the line with all these things. But so I'm always trying to currently be aware that this and that I've learned, it could be, if somebody else could have a total different point of view, and to them is a perfectly valid thing to point of view to think different than mine. And everything's point of views is what I'm getting at.
And that's true, but also you factor in the decay of facts, in that a lot of the things that you and I were taught in school, we're 14 years apart in age. But a lot of the things that I was taught in school, you weren't, because by the time it got to your generation going through the same grade that I was going through, what I was being taught was found to be either not true or just irrelevant. I was taught just straight by the book, I before E except after C, I before E except after C. Well, now we find out that there are more words in the English language that completely, absolutely violate that rule, to the point to where they stopped teaching it because it's just not true. You know, that's a minor example, but there's a lot of things that were taught back in the day that are just irrelevant or are just not true. So we have evolved in that regard, but you were talking about one of the things that separate us from the animals being empathy, the other one being we have a consciousness and awareness of what we do. We may not care about it, but we're aware of what we're doing. We can change our environment, but so do other animals. They change their environments as well. Talk to a beaver. They just don't have a consciousness as to what's going on outside of their area. They know one thing: I've got to build a dam to protect my lodge that I'm building in the middle of this pond I just made, and forget all the other animals that just got displaced by it. So
I need to amend what I said before. It's a factor, it's a necessary component, but the empathy thing is not the only component of our humanity. I just wanted to say that because when I heard you just repeat it, I realized that it wasn't it wasn't a complete picture. Animals also can show incredible compassion.
Sure, they can.
So factor in our human experience, but it's not the only requirement for us to be.
No. I didn't mean to suggest that, and I didn't.
No, I know you didn't. I'm saying that I realized. When you said it, I realized that, I didn't want to leave it off like that. So, when we're delving into these things and we're having, fun and just seeing where it goes, it's also a learning experience for me, because when you talk it out, you can never be so bold. And I guess you can if you want to, but you can never be so bold as to, and I'm saying this for myself, as to think that I've got it all right and another person has it all wrong, because it's such a unuseful way to work out your this life. And I'm saying that because I had a little Facebook interaction where this guy was being nasty to another person, not to me. And I did interject myself because there's a common friend. You know how Facebook is.
Oh, sure.
And the person was acquiring righteousness, and by attacking this person and trying to humiliate and minimize and squash, and his purpose wasn't, let's say, edifying, improving the conversation or the person. The purpose was a sort of social humiliation via social media. And it's such a shallow and such a narcissistic and such a nasty, you wouldn't talk to people like that in front of you, but the comfort of keyboard warrioring makes it so that people can be pretty vicious. And worse than that, because you can always turn it off, right? That's the whole thing. Yeah. But the worse than that is that concept of people using that to sort of enrich their little egos, when what they are is blinded and not, from what I think are the important things. See, that's where it is. Maybe being vicious animal, a savage, and destroying people is a good thing. I don't know. But so, I was thinking in those terms, and I was thinking, as right as one could be, let's say, let's say you win an argument or you have victory over the village across the way. Do you then subjugate the villagers to the point where you kill all their firstborn, torch their homes, and have them living in the gutter? Or do you sort of find a way to have that village function for, I don't know if I'm making sense, but Did I go off to? I probably went off a little
Well,
bit.
we all go off the rails. It's no big deal. My train of thought gets derailed all the time. But you're right about that. There is a level of civility that I think we're losing. The social media is promoting it, because you're absolutely right. And we've talked about this before in a couple of episodes. The anonymity of the keyboard is a powerful thing. And folks say things to people that they know they'll never meet, that they know live half a country away, that they would never say face to face because of that
Anonymity.
and thank
Anonymity.
you, anonymity, for those of you who can speak. Yeah, you know, it's a powerful drug, and that's what it is. It's a powerful drug. I can say whatever I want and this person can't. There can be no repercussions, when all you're really doing is you're calling out attention just to how shallow and how much of a jerk you are. And I just don't have time for those people. I don't engage. I use the 3-click method: delete, ban, next. That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
I've got a list of people blocked on YouTube and on Facebook and on any other social media. I've got a list of people blocked that's a mile long, because I just don't have time for people like that.
They're probably sitting at home with like bags of potato chips all around them in their mother's basement. And they're like hopelessly just crap, and they're getting their thrill from that. But that's not the way to go. But that's just my opinion on it. And see, that's the thing, at the end of the day, I think that's it's right not to do wicked stuff, but maybe for someone else,
just don't be a jerk. Just don't be a jerk. It's easy. I've been doing it for 59 years. Well, most of 59 years. I can be a jerk. Everybody can.
Yeah.
But,
we all have that quality. We all share similar qualities, all of us, those, but to different degrees. And what reining our worst parts in is part of the civilization thing.
But see, you would actually have to admit that that's a deficiency, and you and I both know these people have no deficiencies. They have no shortcomings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
the old joke. Well, conceit is a fault, and I have no fault. Really? Oh well, people are people, man, and folks are going to be jerks when they want to be jerks, and they're going to be decent human beings when they don't want to be. And that's fine. And we all have freedom of speech. We all have the anonymity of the keyboard. I just choose not to associate with those individuals, and I block them. They're gone. Goodbye.
The other day, I think the day before yesterday or the day before yesterday, I it's a funny thing. I thought of you, and let me tell you in the context which I thought of.
Sorry.
Well, no, but so you can see how funny minds are and how things are. So you're not even going to know where this is coming from until I tell you. So it could be anything. So I was in the kitchen, doing some stuff, rushing, and then I decided to head over to the office. And when I turned around and headed towards the office, I sprang my foot out and smashed it into the corner of this metal thing. And I let out a continual wailing that was below audible level. I was holding the screen that in reality it should sound like somebody got killed inside the house, but within me I was going and I'm walking my ass all over the house. And when I came here, which was my original destination, and I put my hand on the table, I thought of you. I said, "Oh yeah, Mark Lindsay." In the small snippet in my mind within the pain, I said, "This is what happens to Mark Lindsay." Damn, yeah, you're right. This does hurt.
That was based on the story I told you about breaking my toe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it weird how our brains work, man? It's the strangest thing. Yeah, what I did was I kicked a waterbed frame. And I don't know if you know anything about waterbeds, but they do not move.
Yeah, because they have to be.
They just don't. And I mean, I broke that toe. I mean, went into the clinic and had it x-rayed and the whole thing. And sure enough, the bone was just, like that. Split it on a diagonal. And but the worst part is there's nothing they can do. I mean, all they can do is put a piece of gauze in between that toe and the toe next to it and tape it up, buddy tape it, and let it heal up. But yeah, I come out of one room and into the other and kicked that waterbed frame and hopped around in a circle, on one foot, inventing my own language, and oh boy. Well, nice to know something like that brings me to mind.
Oh, but it's funny because in the middle of that pain, I said, oh, yeah, I thought of our show and you talking about that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the weirdest thing. Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought this is going to be macabre? Uh-oh. This is going to be super macabre, but I'm gonna say it anyways because screw it. I mean,
should we save it for Halloween? Write it down and say whip it out at Halloween. Is it
I'll
that kind of? Oh, you'll forget. Okay, well.
Yeah, no, it is macabre. It is macabre. We'll leave it alone unless people in the audience want to hear it. You let us know.
We're like 30 minutes in, and folks are probably sitting there going,
"What's the show about?
So what's this thing about?" It's about an hour. It's all tying into what Eloy said at the very beginning. Done dirt cheap. This is what you get for free. And we start in one direction and don't know where the heck we're going to go. So, yeah, okay. I don't know. I mean, you brought up the macabre thing. Now I don't know what the heck to.
We've got one person saying go for it. We need at least 3 people, 4 people. Let's say if we get 4 people that say, yeah, go for it. Mm-hmm. Then we'll do it. But we don't want to go. And it's probably for some people, it might not really be a macabre thing. For me, it's kind of slightly macabre.
Yeah.
But we did get a one go for it. So we need 3 more. And notice that nobody's really jumping. notice people. Nobody's oh, we got a second one. See, we got 2 people that are quite willing to jump in the frying pan.
But we also have normal broadband latency, and we also have YouTube's latency balanced on top of StreamYard's latency, # not sponsored. And so we're getting these about 45 seconds. We're on about a 45 to 50 second delay. So,
you never want to mention that necessarily so that people feel more live than they.
I think it's great because what we can do is we could stop the show right now and then go back and watch ourselves.
No, I don't think that it is that long of a delay. We could do that experiment later after the show part and see.
Okay.
But so far we got the two go for it. So those people are, I consider those people, and I'm not trying to say this as a positive or negative, but I consider those 2 people adventurous and willing to go into the unknown. And that's a quality that I kind of partake in. But again, I'm aware that not everybody is of the same mind. So it's not a judgment. It's just saying that, hey, these 2 people, hey, those 2 are willing to go into the weird.
What a diplomatic way of saying we need to keep our eyes on those guys. Because, that's what diplomacy is at the end of the day, is the ability to keep saying nice doggy while you're looking for a rock to throw.
We've got a 3rd go for it, so we just need a 4th one more. If we get 1 more go for it, then we'll do it. We need 1 more, just 1 more, and we'll
do it. Good grief, you've teased it enough. There, I'm number 4.
Okay, you're number 4. Lord. So, have you ever thought? Has it ever crossed your mind? Hear me out. It's kind of weird. Maybe it's not. I've built it up too much, but when you watch like movies and so on, and the guy's sitting crouched over and he freaking kicks the bucket, or he's in the bed in some sort of like Victorian house and the family, and he kicks the bucket, or he's on a horse and he drops from the horse and smashes over the ravine and this. Well, have you ever thought the last thing people think, the last thought, and I thought the other day, wouldn't it be crappy if the last thing, oh, I got to pay my water bill. Oh, you know, and when I thought that, you know what I'm saying? When I thought that, and I thought of the last thought part of it, I thought to myself, how unimportant any of it, because you're not thinking, see, I told you it was going to be macabre. You're not thinking, some great anything. It's just,
okay. Let me throw something at you. And it's kind of along the lines of famous last words, and I get where you're going with this. But let me ask you this: you ever been like 2 steps up on a ladder and fallen off?
I have.
What were you thinking at the time?
I was thinking nothing.
That's what went through their mind. 100% reflex, 100% instinct. You're not thinking. That's what I think. That's my opinion.
Okay.
That, or it's a lot of people, I mean, on the subject of famous last words, you keep hearing that all the time. I don't know. I kind of think last words are usually more like nurse or oh crap, or words to that effect.
I mean, there's never, okay. So I'm getting at, so, and I think that's the case, but so like, imagine, you would think that, and in times like these, men are varnished in the fires and coals and become this and that, and I have trekked through the wilderness and have arrived at my this and that. And then that you could take and say, well, damn, that was a good exit, right? Now look at, but mostly it's like, honey, I need another cigarette, or did you take the I wonder, did I take the trash out today, or some stupid crap like that?
The iron.
Yeah, I want. I don't want my. Did we unplug the iron last night? It's like, so whatever.
Yeah. Okay, you're driving a truck, and you come around a corner and you see a truck in your lane gonna hit you. Is that the time? Is that the time to get philosophical? No. I think in this case, Cosby was right. You're going to have soiled underwear because first you say it, then you do it. That's all there is to it, I don't think there's any philosophy coming out at that time. It's kind of like on the airplane, the safety briefing where they say the oxygen mask drops, put it around your nose, put the rubber band on the back, tug on it and breathe normally. And George Carlin had a great line. Yeah, I always breathe normally when I'm in a 600 mile an hour power dive. I also crap normally. So there's that. I don't think anybody gets philosophical when they're in that situation. So final thoughts are usually an expletive that we don't want to say for purposes of monetization or oops. Or not that switch, or
something like we fought well at the Battle of Manassas, and we trekked across the hillsides. We stood by the river and gave our horses water, and then we traveled on to Charlottesville for 5 nights and 7. There's nothing like that. It's more like
that may have been 3 days ago. He said all that stuff. Yeah, right. Supposedly. Here's a good example. Supposedly, Pancho Villa's last words were, "Don't let it end like this. Tell them I said something."
Oh, wow.
But I don't know how accurate that could be when you figure he had over 40 bullets in him when they pulled him out of the car. I don't think, maybe that was a week before when he thought he was going to die.
When you just said
that was just, something else.
It's a crazy thing. When you said, I think, you went, I think, and you like, you rasped your voice right there. It reminded me of one of my favorite movies ever, comedy, is The Three Amigos. It is so freaking awesome. But the favorite scene of mine in that whole thing is when El Jefe and El Guapo are El Jefe is standing on the ground outside the hacienda, and El Guapo is on his horse, and it's his birthday, and he turns 40. He looks like a mess at 40, by the way, but it's a funny movie. And he says, Jefe, why don't you just take Maria and this and that? And he's like, and he says, well, she is like a flower. You have to wait. You do not understand women. And he says something to the effect of, but when the Jefe wants the woman, he takes the woman. And the whole interaction is so silly, that little interaction. You just have to see the movie, but whatever. I remembered it. There's no punchline for me to.
And this is how it goes on the Trampled Underfoot podcast, folks.
Yeah, have you seen that movie though?
Thoughts flash. No, I've never seen them. I tell you, I'm a cultural infidel, man. I've not seen that one, and I think when it came out, we were stationed over in Germany, and I just never got around to it.
Mark, honestly, it's your cup of tea because you like the campiness. Like, it truly is, in my opinion, that came out in the 80s. It's a classic, though, in my opinion, like up there with everything is so darn funny. They're all funny. It's all well done, and I couldn't suggest it more. There's a key part in it where he says the plethora thing. He says you have many gifts, Jefe, and it's they're bandidos fighting across old Mexico, and they're just basically bandits. And the three amigos come in from America because they're movie stars, and they think they're there to do a movie skit in old Mexico. But what happens is that a pueblo thought that the movie stars were actual real gunfighters, so they hired them to go to Mexico to fight the real bandidos, and these guys are so silly. And so it's kind of that thing. Well, he says, the bandito says to his boss, he says, oh yes, you have many gifts. And he says, Jefe, would you say that I have a plethora of gifts? and the facial, like the other guy, he looks at him and says, oh yes, you have a plethora. Oh yes. And says, what is a plethora? And he's like, and he says, why, Jefe? Because he's scared of him and stuff. It's just such a funny movie. Whatever. I can't go on and on with it, and which I have. I love that movie. Enough of that.
I've not seen it. I do know it's Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and what was the other guy's name? Oh God, I can't think of the guy's name.
Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and I also cannot think of the other guys.
As plain as day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Martin Short.
Martin Short. Okay. The only thing that was coming to my mind was Martin Sheen, and I knew that wasn't it. Mm-hmm. Don't get old. It's not fun, man. I'm telling you.
I love that movie. I wonder if any of you guys, if you guys out there have seen it.
See, we started with something a little bit macabre, and we ended up with the Three Amigos.
Yeah, it's well, you just got to see. Yeah, the Three Amigos, Jim Bashir's. Have you seen it? You got to see, dude. There's one where the Three Amigos, one of them gets shot, and he touches his side, and he looks, and he says, "Just 1 minute here," and he walks over all prissy to the actual real banditos, and he shows his fingers full of blood. He says, "Real blood. You're getting a lawsuit, mister." And like, they're in old Mexico where there is no freaking court and law. They're fighting it out. And then he realizes the truth that this is real. They thought they were. It's just such a great movie. But that's it. I'm going to stop there because I really love that movie.
To kind of put it in, now there is a movie that I have seen, but it's kind of along the same lines in mistaken identity, in mistaking actors for real characters. Have you ever seen Galaxy Quest?
No, but I think I've heard the title.
Galaxy Quest it's from like 1999, so I'm not a complete social infidel. But it's not got a lot of famous actors in it, Tim Allen's in it, but he's about the biggest. Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman. So there are some big stars in it. Anyway, these guys, they're actors who do a TV show kind of sort of along the lines of Star Trek. So they're space commanders and space fighters and this, that, and the other. Well, this group of aliens comes down to the Earth and seeks these guys out to help them with a real intergalactic problem. And they're just a bunch of actors. And it is kind of a funny movie. It wasn't a super big hit, you know. But I mean, 7.3 out of 10 stars on IMDb. But it's got its funny parts.
Well, will you do me a solid and say that you'll keep it in mind? I'm not going to press you for that. You'll watch it.
I can't make promises because I don't normally sit and watch 2-hour movies anymore. I haven't. Yeah, I don't really do movies much anymore. But I'll keep it in mind if I'm bored. Like that's going to happen. I mean,
well, you know, but we're involved in whatever we're involved in. I'm just trying to hand off this wonderful, like I really like as far as movies are concerned.
I've heard a lot about it. I have heard a lot about it over the years.
I mean, it's not gonna change, you know, life, the universe, and but within the context of a funny mistaken identity type movie, it's so entertaining that hell. You liked Norseman, Linda, and you liked Norseman. So, you know,
so that's what I mean. You know, you're 50-50 because the first one that you kind of recommended, but kind of didn't, kind of fell flat on its face. The second one, Norseman, you recommended that, and that was a good one.
Right. The first one, I didn't see. The problem with the first one wasn't a recommendation. It was just me using it as an example for what we were talking about, but you took it to heart, and I think that damaged my credibility from that point on.
Your credibility was definitely damaged, but the recommend. Oh, you should check it out was more than once. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll check it out.
For which one?
For Idiocracy.
No, dude, I did not.
Go back and
you have false. No, you have false. You know what? You're having selective false memories being added to your memory banks.
Now, huh?
There's no. I would never. Okay, so if I, in the context of, see, if you would have had like a little like at that point, I don't think I knew that you were. If you said, hey, you know, I'm a cultural infidel and stuff, I would have taken more care not to mention too many.
Just go back and listen to the episode. That's all I got to say.
Well, on that note, we do have a website. Just to mention it, since it's a perfect place to mention it, which is trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And over there, if you're, you know, driving or at work and stuff, and you want something to listen to that's entertaining, we have over 100 different episodes over there on our Wayback Machine tab, so you can check that out, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And we do also have a page on Facebook, so that's the same, by the same name, Trampled Underfoot Podcast. And we have this channel which we go live every Tuesday, 9:30 on the East Coast and 6:30 on the West Coast. So I did want to mention that. So yeah, get over to the Wayback Machine, and you got to do some scrolling back, go back page by page by page. But yeah, we've got this is episode 128. We got 127 issues or episodes over there for you to peruse for your listening pleasure. So, but yeah, how we got here, I really don't know. The whole mistaken identity thing in movies, it's been kind of done. Now, I kind of mentioned something when we were talking about music last week in the episode that went live this morning. I kind of said something about our creativity. Maybe we've run out of ideas, or maybe our creativity is just kind of gone. Do you think that also holds true for movies and TV shows? In the context of, yeah, to a degree. I think that we revisit themes, and I think that it's part of I think it's recognized in history through the philosophers and all that, that we as human beings run a cycle, and there's actual there. I don't know it offhand, but there's actual, you can name the different cycles that people go through, and it's a reoccurring thing in micro and macro, in people's lives, and just little things and big things. Everything is cyclical. So yeah, movies are cyclical. Their themes are cyclical. Our experiences are cyclical, with slight variations that may appear different, but at the end of the day, they're not.
Yeah, there are certain tropes that remain constant. Boy meets girl, good versus evil, things of that nature. The bad guy gets it in the end. And there are certain tropes that are constant and consistent.
Yeah.
But we went for a while, there was a lot of creativity out there. We kept revisiting those old tropes, but they were different people in different situations. I mean, you had, something as silly as Father Goose, which was a Cary Grant movie. He's a coast watcher during World War II. And somehow a teacher and some of her girl students end up on the island with him. He's supposed to radio in the position of enemy aircraft when they fly overhead and describe the aircraft and how many there are. And he's just a beach bum. He's just this guy who drinks and smokes and everything else. Well, she comes in and tries to clean up his act and everything for the good of the girls, to be a good example for these young teenagers. What have you. It's just a flat out funny movie. It was a boy meets girl trope there at the end, but the journey to get there, you didn't really know where it was going to go. So it's just silly little movies like that showed a little bit of creativity and putting somebody in, taking two people that were complete polar opposites and throwing them into a situation where they have to be together. And now they got to make the best of it, but then add in the other personalities. It was a fantastic movie, and I do highly recommend that one. It's called Father Goose. I do highly recommend it.
See, I'll put that on my to do. Why not? See, I'm open to that.
Yeah, because you watch movies. I just don't really. But
I like movies.
But today, I mean, we've gone. Thank God they finally got over this fad of taking old TV shows and trying to put them on the big screen. Like the Flintstones and the Beverly Hillbillies. And thank God they're done with that, because some of them just never should have been touched to begin with. But
well, don't say never. Don't say never
again. I won't say never. I'm just hoping they don't come, try to do a reboot of Gilligan's Island or I Love Lucy or something like that. Some things are better left alone. There is... And then we got on the roller coaster with the DC universe and the Marvel universe and everything else. But again, the effects are great. The story is great, but we're going back to comic books and we're pulling the characters out of there. And we're taking the stories that have been in the comic books. So we're putting it up on the big screen because we have the ability for some fantastic CGI. But is that getting worn out? Is that getting tired?
I think that we are getting tired of it because we've lived X amount of time and we're seeing through the curtain. I think that fresh blood comes into the picture and sees things that we see as a drag, and to them it's a fresh thing, and so to them they're being involved. I mean, that's how marketing works anyhow, and they're using stories that, I mean, the whole thing is set up for that. Sure. By the time it gets to us, we're not necessarily the target audience anymore.
Right. I get that, and I understand it. I really honestly do. I am not the target demographic for the Marvel or DC universe. To a very small extent, my wife is, because she loves them. But she watches movies. I mean, she'll put on Pirates of the Caribbean marathon and run all of the movies that she has on DVD while she's doing other stuff. Or she'll have a Harry Potter fest. She's got all 7 of the movies, so she does that. And that's great. That's her thing. And, I can't keep my attention focused that long. So I'm not the target audience. And I know that, I realize it. But when you look at the popularity of like the Star Wars franchise, that movie was filmed in 76 and early 77 and came out in 1977. And it's still going strong. There are people who are watching The Mandalorian on Netflix that came out of, I think it's on Netflix. I'm such a social infidel. I don't know where it came from, but it's still based on that universe that came out 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago. So it does have a life of its own, and it is popular.
One of the main criticisms that occurred when they restarted the
remastered them, yeah.
No, not remastered, but when they reinitiated the whole Star Wars franchise back in, I guess, the early 2000s or something. Yeah. People that were fans from the beginning were not happy with certain characters added, such as one called Jar Jar Binks and so on. There was just a lot of cartoony silliness and this and that. But on one level, what had happened is that that audience that was there from the beginning had gotten older, and they had a love for the original,
right?
That no, second, re-upping on I forget, I don't even know what word to use, another installment, a new installment, no amount of anything would meet their expectations because they're older, so characters will seem silly. Whereas if you're a young kid watching that for the first time, you're on a ride of your life, and there's that damage that you can't satisfy.
And I get it, and I'm not the target audience for that. I was back then when I saw Star Wars when it came out. Went to a drive-in, saw it on the big screen, and they had me from that opening scene. I mean, the text crawls up at an angle. That was cool on its own. But that opening scene when the quote-unquote camera pans down and there's that planet right there, they had me because nobody had ever seen anything like that before. It was that over the top. And then here comes the ship flying over. It looks like it appears over the top of the camera.
And it keeps going.
And it was just like, holy cow. And then an even bigger ship is chasing it and shooting at it. Yeah. They had me. I was it. That was it. I was there for the duration. And we waited 3 years for the next one to come out and went and saw that. And then we waited, I think, 2 years for the next one to come out. We went and saw that. Part of which was filmed like 70 miles away from here, by the way, in the giant redwoods. The forest moon that was down in the giant redwoods.
That was their third installment, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, that was filmed just right down the road from us there in the giant redwoods. But anyway, I
saw that movie with my mom, the Return of the Jedi. I saw that one with my mom here in the Ambassador movie theater when it came out.
Yeah. But so I was the target audience for that. But what a lot of people don't know and a lot of people forget was the first movie, Star Wars, was meant to be a standalone movie because it was actually fairly low budget compared to other movies at the time because they didn't know how it was going to do. It was a big gamble. And they shopped around for companies to put it out and finally found 20th Century Fox. They said they would take a chance only because Lucas had the history of American Graffiti, and which got several Oscar nominations. But nobody had ever seen anything like that before, and people were just hooked. Nobody knew it was going to be the phenomenon it was. So they made it a standalone movie. Then they said, and that's why it ended the way it did. Then it became the most popular thing ever. Then they said, okay, we'll experiment with a second one. And that's why the second one ended as abruptly as it did, because they knew they had you. And there would be a number 3. So, but you make a good, valid point real quick about we want to keep the old stuff. We want to keep things the way they were. So when Lucas came out and added CGI to the old original Star Wars and added new scenes to it, people rebelled and they hated it. My personal opinion is it is his creation. He can do with it what he wishes. Some scenes did enhance it. Some scenes took away from it. But it's still the same story, and it's a good one.
I'm gonna make a secondary recommendation, which obviously I know that this is a difficult one to do since you have already explained your what is it, social?
My social infidel status.
Your social infidel.
No, not social. Cultural. I'm not a social infidel. I like people just fine. People are people. I just don't engage in the new pop culture. I like the old one. Old school's the best school. That's why I am.
So I'm going to recommend a secondary one.
Oh.
This is a series. There's 2 seasons. And you will absolutely, Linda will absolutely notice how I'm,
Speaking of target demographic, yeah.
Notice how I'm like pressing on the gas on this one. It's called, I think, the Dairy Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see exactly what it's called. The Dairy Girls. Okay. Dairy Girls. And here's the story. Incredibly Northern Ireland sitcom type thing. It's made by Netflix. What I like about it is, now, mind you, I like it because it reminds me of the old, I know it's not the same thing, but it reminds me of the old British sitcom type things, but modernized in such a funny way with funny characters. There's a bunch of Catholic schoolgirls.
Okay.
And one poor English school kid amongst them because he's cousins with one of them. So he ends up being shipped out to Northern Ireland, and he's amongst them and stuff, and they pick on him and stuff. But in a fun, they love him. But they all have personalities that are so unique that you can't help but enjoy this series. But it's all a bunch of kids getting into a whole lot of trouble in scenic Northern Ireland. It's freaking fantastic, dude. In my opinion. And
just to clarify here, we're talking dairy as in DERRY, the place, not dairy DAIRY, like they're out there milking cows.
Right.
Okay. All right. The Dairy Girls. I'll look into it.
Yeah. I think
she does like some stuff like that.
Oh no. I think because even the jokes. So you know how we always, or I always like joke about Jamie Page with his particular style of communication. They have their particular way of speaking, and it's quite thick. It makes it so much fun. It is a great series. I'm hamming it up a little bit because I think that you would kind of sort of like it.
Okay.
So I'm just going to throw that out.
Okay. Well, we don't have Netflix, so that is a problem. But I'll do some digging around and seeing if I can find trailers and things like that, and see if it's something that she's interested in. Who knows? Maybe it's a new hit. We put stuff like that on all the time. We go hit the rack. I throw up a movie or a TV show or something like that, and we both fall asleep. So it's that's what old people do these days. They have one computer with their movies on it and put it on and fall asleep to it.
I totally get it, but within that, the little interactions with the mothers, there's nuns involved in the thing, and the seriousness of it, but with the slapstick, it's just the whole thing is done very well. Okay, I mean, I'm not completely oblivious to good production and quality work. I mean, we all know it when we see it, and I'm just saying that I see it in this series, and so I'm just putting that out there for you and the audience and stuff. If you're into that kind of stuff, I think it's just totally a cool series. But whatever, I'll leave it at that.
Okay,
because I think that I've stated my.
I do watch a lot of British TV shows and British series, so I'll do some looking into it and seeing what we can see. So,
I know that we're at the. It's a funny thing, we're at the hour, but I had a little something to share, but I guess it's over. I'll tell you what it was I was going to do.
Okay, well, it's your edit, so take it as long as you want. But depending on how much of this you edit out, it may take it under an hour. So,
I'll tell you what it is, and you tell me if you like it or not. Either way, it's fine. It's interesting, unknown facts and little just phrases and such that you would it would be interesting for you to know. Just random stuff. So I don't know and these you probably would never have heard of in your life. I was looking for something that you would never have heard of.
Okay.
Because going with the done dirt cheap thing, I wanted to bring extra value, but we never got around to this thing.
Okay. Well, so why don't we save it for next week and leave it as a cliffhanger and entice the audience to come back next week?
Okay, we could do that. We'll
open with it next week. That sounds cool. Because that kind of thing, it's very rare that you ever get to the bottom of the list on that kind of thing, because we always find something to talk about in the middle. And that takes us off on a tangent, and there we go.
Yeah, totally. So listen, we're sponsored by Harneal Media, and that is Steve Nealon at harnealmedia.com. And if you guys are, and by the way, they do our website and a bunch of YouTube stars across the interwebs as well. But instead of it being this thing where it's like just unknown people managing your websites, it's a personalized service, and it's a trusted person that runs this company, so they can do products for you. Like, let's say you want to sell a mug or a shirt with your brand logo on it, or any number of things that you want to do, and you need that hosting, you need that website. Well, Steve over at harnealmedia.com can get that set up for you. And you could just reach out to him by sending him a message over there at harnealmedia.com. So that's that.
That's that. So let's put on the brakes for this week, and we'll come back next week with guns blazing.
All right. We'll have a good week, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace. Okay, there's a clean break. Now to get into these comments. Movies got to be simple and petty to reach as many people as they can. Some things never change. That's where literature came from. That's where TV came from. That's where all entertainment has come from. It's got to be something quick. Hit me with it now. Keep it exciting to keep my attention. Nothing new under the sun there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, Linda's hot and heavy into the Guardians of the Galaxy because she is seriously in love with Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt to her is... have you ever seen any interviews with Chris Pratt?
I don't even know who that guy is.
Have you ever seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
He's the Star-Lord.
Okay.
He lives here in Oregon, not too far up the road from us. And he lives there on a ranch with his wife and son. And they raise sheep, and he has a pond that he has stocked with fish, and just gives it a good go up there when he's not working.
Oh, that's very good.
He's a funny guy in interviews, real down-to-earth guy. It's just like he's just like one of the guys. He's you and me, really. He's a real funny guy. But so yeah, she seriously loves him. So, let's see. Let's see what else we got going here. Oh, Rick French brings up, I guess we're talking about the famous last words, Artie Johnson in the Blues Brothers. I've always loved you. Yeah, when the Ford Pinto with the Illinois Nazis come off of the bridge and land. I'm looking for something by there. It is. Jim Bashir says, as an Indiana resident, I object to Mark appropriating our culture. My great 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 grandfather was born in Indiana when it was still the Indiana Territory. My four times great grandfather paddled up the river in a dugout canoe and established his tannery outside of what is now the town of Aurora, Indiana, in Dearborn County. I have deep Indiana roots. I'm appropriating nothing. Off me, fellow Hoosier.
I mean, so about that, I mean, obviously he's joking, but
I know he is.
but with that, so what can if you can claim Indiana, can I claim? See, in my situation, I can claim Cuba. I can claim the Canary Islands. Literally, I can claim these places. I can claim Spain for sure. That's the main thrust of it all. I can claim those three places, Canary Islands being an offshoot of Spain, and Cuba being an offshoot of Spain as well. I can claim those three places and Miami.
I was getting ready to say you're forgetting Miami, Florida, USA, but yeah.
Well, no. So, but here's the question: I am literally of and from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
It's all I've really ever known, as far as this is the ground that I've walked on. The dirt, I know the dirt. I know the smell of the dirt. Mm-hmm. It is the dirt that so I can claim in a certain way those other places as well, of course, because there's that, like you were mentioning, but and it wouldn't be any type of appropriation, now would it? Or would it?
Well, it could be.
Because could I go around? I can't, because
it could be. It depends. It depends on the context, and it depends on who's doing it. That's also more important, because I can claim my mother's from Texas. I can claim to be Texan.
Right, but it's not right.
But no, it's just, I'm not a Texan. Come on. There's nothing about me that says Texas other than on my videos I say y'all.
See that's the whole thing. I can't claim, and my father was very clear about that. And he would, because the story, you could go back into many episodes. I think there's one called The Cuban Elvis where the story unfolds there. But my dad would say, I'm paraphrasing, our struggles and our occupation, that's our thing. You're from here, this is your country, we are, and he would always tell me that. So he broke in my psyche. And he said, listen, so it's not like, people that migrate to a place and they're like, they're sticking to their, although we stuck with our traditions, but he made it an emphasis to say, you have no skin in this game, son. You're this is your world. This is your country, and we have our fight over back there and stuff. So he made that an emphasis. So, could I really claim I could? I have association and family members from all these places, but in reality, at the end of the day, it's like, just like you saying Texas or Indiana, there's a history there.
Right.
But
but is it really your history? Now, I have been to Indiana. I've not been to Aurora, where my grandfather set up the tannery, because I didn't know about it at the time. I've been to Kentucky. I did not go to Lindsay Station there outside of Stamping Ground, Kentucky, because I didn't know about it at the time. And it kind of irks me, because there were times I was within 50, 60 miles of these places, and I'd love to go see them. My dad did go back and take pictures and send to me, but I really, can't. I don't know how legitimate is it for me to say that I'm an Indiana Hoosier when I've been there, but I wasn't born there. I was born in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Unless
you have an affinity and you're saying it within the thing of the affinity. I mean, look, these are all things that are on a personal level, right? At the end of the day. So one could totally be, like totally involved with Q, because there are people here in Miami, which I've never done, but there are, and I'll tell you. as an example here, and I guess you could use the Irish and Italians up in the in a New England area, let's say, as an example too. There's people that are quite continuations of Italian, and indeed they are, but culturally there could be variations. Over here, there's people that are literally born here and stuff, but they just simply identify as Cuban. And if I asked a girl one, or I don't know if I asked, there was a conversation. We were at the beach with family, different family, with a girlfriend of mine. And this one girl, completely born in the United States, grew up very young. And the thing came up about food that's brought to the beach. And she mentioned all these Cuban items and stuff. And then me and some friends mentioned all these barbecue stuff and just American stuff. And as a complimentary, right? We're not saying no to one. What we're just saying. And she was like, no, only this. And I'm like, hey, but young girl, you were born here. You know, you're. And she said, no, I'm Cuban. I was like, what? No, but you have to understand. No, I'm Cuban. In her mind, because of the way her parents, the ideology, and she doesn't connect all these things that are quite important. So there's different variations. You'll have people that are still Irish, you know, let's say, or people that are like, I have a neighbor that's a Cuban Jewish person, and he loves Israel, but he's not from Israel. He just has that descendants.
Right.
You know, so what's the line? You know?
Well, the line is where you want to put it, I think, personally. I mean, it's hard to say because of what happened to your family. Your family, your dad basically came here at the point of a gun, basically. And if you want to hear that story, I know we keep referring to our website. We keep referring to previous episodes. No, it wasn't Cuban Elvis. That one was Eloy's Revolutionary Roots, where we talked about your dad and what happened to your family over in Cuba. And, you know, your dad's immigration was not necessarily voluntarily. Let's put it that way. He got out before he could be stood up against a wall. That means something. So for him to do that with you and tell you that was my fight, that's not your fight to take up. You're American. You were born here. You know, that's my fight. That speaks volumes, number one, to his character. Number one. And number two, for him to not try to inflict that or indoctrinate you in any way, in any direction. So, I mean, I can't even fathom something like that. You know, I don't know how my ancestors came here. We still really don't know. All we know is they magically appeared in Maryland in like 1709, I think. But before that, we have no clue. We have DNA evidence that takes us back to Scotland and then over into Luxembourg, Belgium. But we don't have any documentation for that. So my story is a completely different one, and it's rather plain and white bread in a lot of ways, in that it's just people eking out an existence. You know, you have people who were in the military, you have people who weren't in the military. They were farmers, they were tanners, they worked the land, and they did the labor that they knew how to do. So it's kind of pretty boring, actually.
but I always I mean, I can't take that from, because you're saying that, but that story isn't just like not non-exciting, you know, not
I'm not suggesting that it wasn't, because there were, believe me, you know, I hesitate to say the word adventures because they weren't thinking that way, but they did live pretty adventurous lives as compared to us. You know, I never got on a wagon in 1866 and came out here and filed a land patent on the Applegate River outside of Murphy and settled there. I never did that. I was born into this circumstance where I have had a pretty cushy existence, all things being said.
Well, we wait a sec, but we all right, and that's the case. On the whole, all of us, notwithstanding, life is quite the dangerous thing because all sorts of things. But
Sure.
the context of our standard of living, we are pretty. Notwithstanding all the crap, which we're not very, happy about that occurred, but we are quite compared to these folks back in the day. Boy, dude, I mean, honestly, like, look at us. And I know you. Look, I know you. For the sake of talking, I know you know this, but I'm always astounded. I am sitting in a room. Nobody's shocked about that out there, and whoever hears this in the aggregate. But I'm sitting in a room. It's not a hut. It's not thatched. It's not a mud. What do you call those mud and with the
mud?
The mutton batten or something like that, or
daub and wattle.
It's not a daub and wattle. But here's the thing: not only am I sitting in a room, but within this room there's electricity, and that's just bare bones. Meaning that at night I can turn on the lights and see, and worst, or even on top, and air conditioning. Since I live in this climate, it's happening. But I take all this for granted, mind you. I'm just thinking. But even increased over that, I'm talking to a guy over 3,000 miles away, enjoying the heck out of my evening to the nth degree. I'm enjoying the crap out of myself, talking to someone in my room from across the country. It's so freaking insane what we're doing, and yet to us it's normal, but in reality it's fantastical.
Yeah, it is. We're living the Jetsons. We are the Jetsons. But let's go a little bit further than that. None of us are out trying to filter a mud puddle to have drinking water for today. None of us is wondering where our next meal is going to come from. We're wondering what we're going to select to have tomorrow from that which we have in our freezer or in our fridge or in the cabinet, or maybe I'll go down to this fast food joint, or no, I'm tired of fast food. I think I'm going to go over and sit down at this restaurant and have a meal. We have so many choices. We have so many things available to us that we want to sit and overanalyze other things, other parts of our lives where we think that our life is pretty damn deficient because of certain things. There are things wrong, and there are things wrong for other people when we're not even looking at what we have. Dude, what we have ourselves, you want to see real poverty. I can take you to show you real poverty.
The fact that we have and I know the automobile has been around for 100 and some odd years and all that. But the idea of, but it's not, none of this is that old. It's old in the context of, but it's not like it's been around forever. Most of humanity has lived in pretty difficult times.
Oh, yeah. Up until about 150 years ago. That's when things started improving. About 150 years ago. I'm just looking out here at the chat, and I got Daniel Haryu and my wife Linda having a discussion about who owns the earth. Because, we were claiming Indiana and you were claiming Cuba and Spain, and Daniel come in and said he claimed the earth. It's his now. And so Linda and they're having an argument. And now Haryu is saying, no, he's going on to Mars. I say Earth first. We can strip man the other planets later on.
I think for me, the tract of land that one can fence in and cultivate, or for whatever purpose that one can, I think that's a good basic foundation for, and this is a Western culture concept. I think that's quite a good foundation. And by the way, that comment, that is a very non-aggressive comment. There are people around the world that would think that that's just insanity. That concept of, I've built this little fence area, and within it I have chickens and little animals, and I've built a little thing, and I can sleep there, and this and that. I will call that mine. That concept is like hell on earth for some people.
I'm kind of sort of one of those people, but not because I have a philosophical problem with calling anything mine. It's just that I know that I would suck at subsistence farming. You know, if I had to grow and farm, raise, hunt, fish for my food, and I could eat nothing outside of that, I'd be dead. Plain and simple. I would suck at it. I mean, some guys just can't do that. Some guys just aren't cut out for that. And I'm one of them. I would have to make something and barter for it, you know?
Hey, dude, not to change the subject, but when we started this podcast, maybe 2 years to 3 years in the running now,
2 years ago, yeah.
My beard was not this gray. If you go back into a video, you'll see that my beard. And by the way, I'm just growing it back out now because I had shaved it. And I know that this is a vain convert, but it has more to do not with whether it's gray or not, but more with how time is. Just within this short time, my beard has freaking changed.
I can tell you what's doing it is you keep shaving it off. Stop shaving it off because every time it comes back, it's going to be grayer. That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. And by the time I was 45, I looked like my own grandfather. It was Snow White. I have blonde hair, but my beard was Snow White. You've seen the picture. I showed you the picture. And I shaved it off then, and I haven't had a beard since.
Well, I think that's cool. If I let my hair grow, see, if I were skinny like I was like 20 years ago, and which, by the way, is something that anybody could by exercising is that. But let's say it's skinny, and I let my hair grow like when I was in my 20s, and had a white beard with the black hair and the white beard. I think that looks kind of freaking cool. You know, I'm having like imagery and fantasy of possible what is it, D&D role playing, you know, maybe buy myself a sword and stuff, you know, whatever.
Merlin Escagedo. Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, right? Medieval, this and that. It would be so freaking cool.
Yeah, well, I don't know. All I know is if you shave it again, it's going to come back in grayer.
Hey, look. Apparently that's what's happening. I just, you know, but yeah. I can't say never, but it's almost kind of like never. I will never add that what is it that dark and lovely tint. Yeah,
looks like you put shoe polish on and
yeah,
and combed it out.
Yeah, it's just not. I mean,
it never looks right. It never looks right. And you know, the funny thing about it is, everybody can tell. Everybody knows. If you're over 45 and you're coloring your hair, everybody knows. The only one you're fooling is yourself.
Well, you know, I used to, I get called sir more than I ever had in my previous years on this earth. There's a lot of there's a lot of sirring going around, you know, and sometimes I'm not in the mood for that crap, man.
Yeah, well, that's why I tell people, don't call me sir. Talk to me like I'm trying to borrow money from you, you know, or want to date your daughter or something like that, you know.
I remember,
sir.
Well, because that sir thing is a situation. So like, I remember having a conversation with a dude that was older guy, and within the context, I was much younger, and we were talking about music, this and that, and I said something like, "Right on, sir," and he was like, "Dude, don't call me sir. What the heck, man? What the heck?" And so so in his mind, he wasn't. I brought that angle out by saying the sir. It added a time frame to him, and he was like, "What the hell, man?" Yeah. But it's really not a vicious term.
No, it's not. It's a term of respect, and a lot of kids are taught that. I mean, that's something that blew me away. Talk about culture shock. That was something that blew me away about down south. Was you will hear that a lot from kids. They are taught to call sir and ma'am. Yeah. And it like if a child was talking to me, I wouldn't be Mark, I'd be Mr. Mark. And my wife Linda would be Miss Linda. It's respect. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was pretty cool, you know, that they're instilling that level of respect in their kids. You know, but also other things like I was just taught that was how you address some people that you don't know. Somebody gives me a compliment, I'm like, "Thank you, sir." There's nothing age related attached to it. It's just a saying. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
I got a story about that, and I know I don't want to keep going and going, but I gotta share this with you guys. I gotta share this with you guys. So, on that note of sir and ma'am, obviously I was taught that as well, and I use it because that's what you do. And it's respectful.
Politeness, yeah.
Years and years ago, I was working as an independent contractor, and I would go from store to store to check on inventory, write down what they needed, what they didn't need, this and that, go to the head person of that department and have them sign off on a new shipment of whatever was lacking on the shelves. I ended up in this one store way down in Homestead, and I walked in and they didn't have enough missing product to add up more, but they wanted more. And they brought the manager, big manager, and she came over and she says, "We want more of that." And I said, "Well, no, ma'am, we can't really do that because the way we, if you're missing items, because they've sold, we will replenish. But in this case, we couldn't do it. Like, we couldn't do it. It was part of the company's deal with those
part of the contract, yeah."
And I said, "No, ma'am." And when I said ma'am, her freaking attitude, I don't want to, I'll paraphrase, but it was something like, "Don't call me ma'am. Give me your full name and and give me the number of your manager. And I'm going to this." And all I said was ma'am. But the reason I'm telling you, when I said ma'am, that triggered a series of events that led to a quick decline in the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know what part of ma'am was offensive.
I don't either.
But it triggered her. It triggered her, and the whole point is that my whole point is, and I've verified this throughout time, no matter your behavior, people around you will or will not appreciate said behavior on good terms, and they will react according to their laws and rules in their head, be it reasonable or unreasonable. And therefore, I've come to the conclusion that the least contact with, I was going to use a bad word, the least contact with people that I have, I know it sounds diminishing as far as, interactions,
dude,
the better you are, because people are screwed up. That's my opinion, man.
There comes a time when you're just done fighting, and I'm with you there.
Yeah, I don't.
But see, you're a nicer person than me because my mouth would run away with me. "Oh, you don't like ma'am? Would you prefer B word?"
Yeah, I wouldn't go there because
I would have. There was a time in my life where I'd have been there like white on rice, my friend. I'd have been there so fast. She'd have been begging me to call her ma'am. Ask my wife one day. I can go on a roll. Believe me. That's one thing the Army taught me, was how to trash talk on a roll, and I can keep going. I got nothing but time.
But so at the end of the day, we cannot, no matter if we're applying the best rules of engagement in daily activity, no matter how good you think that you're operating in the best terms, somebody else was taught different behavioral strategies, and maybe calling them an ass, hat is the appropriate, and they understand that. Some people understand the nice way, and I said first because it's and other people don't understand unless it's confrontational. So because of all that, I'm like, I don't want to engage with anybody as reduced an amount of people, because all it is headaches.
Yeah, exactly.
You're swimming in a world of hallucination. This is what they are. When you go outside your door, you're dealing with other people's hallucinations.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, she wasn't getting what she wanted, so there was no winning strategy for you. If you'd have called her by her name, she'd have had a problem with that. If you'd have not called her by a name, she would have demanded you call her one. So there was no winning strategy for you. Her mind was made up. She wasn't getting what she wanted. She was mad about it, and you were the target.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, been there, done that, got the T-shirt.
And a person like that, And a person like that, here's how it gets even worse. A person like that, and by the way, I gave her my manager's number, my this and that, and I got later a call. But a person like that, here's the key, and this is like, in my opinion, wisdom and knowledge through hits, bumps, and scrapes of life. A person like that, once you hand over in this particular, and you can apply this anywhere across the board, in my opinion, you handed over that number to call your manager, there is minimal possibility that she is going to relay what occurred in your favor.
Well, you know that's not going to happen.
Ever, it's going to be a bunch of bull to get her thing off of her. And so what happens is that there's, like you said, there's no winning. I got a call after that, and I had nothing to do with anything other than following instructions, and I was being that, and I got a little bit of a slappy slap, and I said, well, you know what? Then this part of my job, because I was an independent contractor, I'm going to go ahead and draw back on that, and I'm just going to keep doing the other things that I do, and I don't want this part of the job anymore because I'm independent contractor. If that's the case, I said, well, you know what? No problem. I'm just not gonna. We're gonna end this.
Not gonna service her store anymore. Yeah.
Because it's not. It was bad for me because I got less money.
But some things are something. But if to keep servicing it wouldn't have been worth enough money. So.
Yeah. So so whatever. That's dude. When you, I don't know. If I were like a hermit in a cave somewhere in Greece, sitting on with like a little pool of water, and I'd probably, that would be me if we're like 2,000, 3,000 years ago.
Yeah. There's so many more comments over there that I want to talk on, but we've been on for an hour and a half, and I think we need to go ahead and close it down.
Okay.
So, but it's a weird world, folks, and we're here to share it with you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for being a part of all this, and thanks for sticking for after we record the audio part and BSing with all of us. Yeah, Linda says, call her sir, see what happens. Yeah, you don't like ma'am? I have plenty of alternatives. Yeah.
I mean, see, I just wanted to get out of that one because, when you're stuck.
Yeah, I've been there.
I was stuck. Like I had to wait for the unleashing of the attack and try to wrap it up so I can call it. And I went to my car. I don't want to say light-footed, like a little bit, but I went to my car like, did I just get railroaded like a freaking animal?
But you know what?
Railroaded, dude.
You know what? This is just the way my mind works. The minute I handed that card over to her, there's my manager's name, number. Here's his business card. My part of it's over with. And I would have walked out with a spring in my step because it's no longer on me. I don't care what they have to talk about. I know what happened. Done.
Well, look, great show. We did do the after show, this is the after show. Again, you guys can catch us over on TrampledUnderfootPodcast.com, over on the Facebook page as well by the same name, and over here on YouTube. So we'll catch you guys next time. Enjoy your week, and thank you for hanging out with us.
Yep. Have a good night, y'all.